As a child, I've always been multifaceted, always interested in being hyper creative. In fact, over creating who? My previous self, myself yesterday. Out creating myself, being able to show up and explore my imagination to its fullest. You see, my parents never really cut off the circulation to my creativity growing up. Now, of course, just like other South Asian parents, they told me to study, okay? That's normal. Okay, that's just what you get when you come into this world and you're of Indian descent, okay? Academics will take a very big picture in your life, okay? So I want you to start to understand something, man. My journey to spirituality started with me, first of all, exploring my shadows, exploring my inner work. And the thing is, I actually didn't have the self-love at the time to have almost like a propulsion or a foundational armoring before I could go into the shadow work. So I actually felt even more depressed when I started doing that. I started exploring the different things, and it was actually much easier to access shadow work at that time, because if you're at that low state of consciousness, you know, you're like, well, yeah, whatever, like I'm open to listening to whatever flaw about me, because that's what I speak, that's the language that I regurgitate in my own mind. You see what I'm saying? So I started to understand that I have to first of all shut down this inner chatter, or this inner critic in my mind, constantly gnawing for approval and attention and seeking for all of these, you know, different validation measures and trying to make me feel whole and complete, when actually it was serving me the other way. It was pulling me more away from my mission. So what I would advise you to do is, first of all, just start small. Start stacking small incrementally, okay? I know you've probably heard this multiple times, different people telling you this, to start and stack small. But that is what has helped me so much, man. If you're in a state where you're so low and you're down in the dumps and you're sad, you're crying, you're depressed, you won't leave your home. If you're in this negative space right now, it's very, very difficult to be in a positive mindset. And it's very, very difficult to suddenly start, you know, being in gratitude, because you're just that low. You just feel that sense of shame, and everything feels like it's constricting, like it's getting smaller and smaller, right? Less breathing room to be who you truly want to be, right? Like, for instance, if I'm just here right now being who I want to be, I feel an openness, I feel an expansion, I feel a freedom of being who I want, you know, and not caring and worrying about, you know, how are other people going to judge me or approve of me? Am I okay? Am I professional enough? You know, this constant seeking and this people pleasing that happens underneath the substrate of Bengali culture that we don't notice. Okay? So what you gotta be doing is, man, you gotta understand like who you really are. And I only explored that by traveling the world. My parents obviously had a job that moved me around the world. I went to Switzerland, Thailand, you know, back to Thailand for high school. Then I went into 4 years in a liberal arts college, okay, in the middle of nowhere in Vermont, okay, Bennington College, where Peter Dinklage went to college, right? I was there. I used that time as a performance art piece to edit myself and make myself understand that I am a social animal, okay? That other people aren't always going to understand me, but I still want to make an impact and a collision with whoever comes across my presence. And so what did I do? I started a fraternity. I started a cult, okay, in college. I got together a group of guys who were thinking in like-minded ways. And these were just my friends at the time, right, in a sense. And we would just get together, you know, chill, hang out, but also talk about certain mind-expanding ideas. So that was just kind of me testing out the waters. You get what I'm saying? That was me exploring my different sides of me, the different realms, the different walkthroughs in this video game of life. I started to explore that to a greater depth, okay? And once I understood this to a greater depth, I started to do little incremental steps, like 5-minute guided meditations. That's what I would start off with, man. Start off with 5-minute guided meditations each day, and going for just a little walk, like maybe a 10-minute, 5-minute walk around wherever you are at, okay? Get yourself in that momentum of just starting with those two. Just make that your baseline, your go-to, the thing that you do, okay? When you feel stressed, you feel frustrated, you just go on a little walk or a jog. And whenever you feel anxious or in your head, you meditate, okay? So this is a very, very powerful protocol that later on you can start to understand much more. I started to stack and kind of use myself as like a science experiment or a social experiment, in a sense, where I would try on different costumes and see, like, does this fit me? Does this fit my character? Who I'm trying to be, who I'm trying to actively pursue and create right now, right? Is that the most accurate representation of me? I started to do that. I started to speak it. I mean, I've always spoken funny accents, you know what I mean? Like, I was one of the few people who grew up in international schools. So as you know, growing up in international schools and watching cartoons from all over the world, I started to get a sense of, hey, I can mimic these voices. I can model this type. I can understand the voice of this character, and let me try to embody that within myself. First of all, it was to mock it, because I came from that rap battling space into much more of a freestyling headspace of just making music and things like this. And I've just always been fascinated by how our words create our world, okay? How our language creates the situation or the reality that we find ourselves in. And so this technique of reframing, as I'm told to numerous, patients, clients, Padawans from all over the world, this process of reframing really just became a lifestyle. It didn't become reframing anymore. It didn't become a tool, but much more I started to see myself in the perspective that best served me. I started to actually see my self-image as the best version of me. And I started to look and perceive and shapeshift each and every single day by doing mirror work, by meeting myself in the mirror and saying, hey, you're all right, man. No matter what people say about you, they can talk shit all they want. You know yourself more than anybody. Okay, I would actually pump myself up and give myself these little pep talks or motivational talks I remember at times. And your eyes are the windows to the soul, as they say, right? It's like it holds the timeline together. So your eyes go back to your past, but it also goes into your future, remember? So when you make eye contact with the mirror, there is a meeting of your soul, in a sense. And it's very uncomfortable for a lot of people. You might want to do like little pouty duck faces or little funny faces in the mirror. You might want to compensate by pulling your chest up more than it actually juts out. You might want to try to lean to one side and try to get your better angle or whatever, right? You have all these egoic things that you do in front of the mirror, and you start to notice it a little bit more, and you start to gain much more admiration for you in your neutrality. So when you look at the mirror, you're not smiling, you're not doing anything, you're just simply in neutrality. You're in that state of mind where you're just observing. You're in that meditative space of just observation. And I knew this way too well. I grew up as an introvert, right? Very in my own internal world. And I feel very comfortable being alone and being by myself, because I love basking in that afterglow of just being by myself. And that's the thing. When I grew up, when I was a kid, man, I would have all of these imaginary friends, right? I would invent characters. I even called my stuffed toy tiger Timbo, right, at the time. And I would just create these little characters and buy all these action figures and kind of play with them, imagining different scenarios. I was hyper creative, remember? Okay, so I'd draw little comic books. Me and my friend Adam, we had this thing called Adam and Sumet's Comic Corner, I remember, when I was in Switzerland, right? And then as I grew up, I started to get into stand-up comedy. I always felt like comedy was kind of a crutch for me, because I used my humor to mask any of my insecurities or things that I was going through or not really refined or integrated well enough. And I would just use humor to kind of push it away and mask it away and mask away my problems and just laugh it off, right? That was my mentality at the time. And laughing it off is a great skill set to have, but not when it comes at the fact that you're running away from something, being an avoidant attachment style, right? Being that kind of person who like backs out or avoids confrontation. Nowadays, I've taught myself how to go into this confrontation and be able to meet somebody and have that raw ferocity and that vivacity within me that doesn't get easily intimidated. I actually intimidate a lot of people, see? And that's the thing, you gotta still keep going. Don't let that stop you. The fact that you're intimidating others, that's a part of your golden shadow, okay? A lot of these people who made it big, I was watching the KSI documentary. I watched like half of it. But it was showing how he would make these silly, you know, funny videos and goofy videos in the beginning just to like amp everybody up and be positive. And then he slowly started to figure out his own authenticity throughout the years, you know. And that's similar to me too. You know, I cringe at some of my old videos and that's just a normal process that we all go through as creatives or as artists or as creators online, right? We all go through this process where we're trying to still figure ourselves out, right? And so we try these different things, and that's basically what you want to be doing. You want to be going through a trial and error process, because even with my spirituality, how I'm connected with all these deities and things simply happened through altered state experimentation, right? Putting myself into these trance states or hypnosis states, and then implementing, you know, a lot of embedded subliminals, or trying to practice, you know, holding a specific mantra for an extended state of time. Things like this, I would give myself little challenges and experiments, and I even ask for challenges from these gods or these deities, right? Challenge me, right? And sometimes you got to be careful what you wish for, because they're really going to challenge you. They're going to put you through the test and through the fire, okay? So don't just, you know, ask for something random like this without thinking about it twice, okay? They're going to demolish you, okay? There's no use fighting these beings who are like 1 trillion times more powerful than you, okay? There's no way you're gonna do it unless you have your own spiritual backing, in a sense. And after channeling Metatron a few nights ago, we feel like in our path working, at least in Primal Sutra, we have the backing, we have the spiritual backing to now actually activate and let this thing lift off a little bit, right, off the ground. This is kind of the launch pad phase for us right now. And so once I realized that, hey, I'm actually a spirit, I'm not a human being. I'm a spirit functioning within the human constraints or construct of this physical body, of this experience that I'm in and placed in. You know, I've gotten certain resources that my family has provided for me, and so I have the space to actually do something with it, right? A lot of people were born with like a silver spoon or like much more well off, right? My parents are both doctors, but they don't use the skills that they have, right? They don't use the resources, they don't use the connections, they don't do anything with it. They're kind of like, oh, I want to be independent, I want to do it all myself. I tried that independent stuff, you know, for a while too. I was like, I'm going to do it all myself. But having your parents' support, having your friends' support is equally important. A lot of people tell you to cut off all your friends and cut off all your, you know, and keep your friends close and enemies closer. Yeah, you got to keep your enemies close to know them, and so you can deconstruct their egos in a sense. But that's not to say that you just hang around your enemies all the time, because then you're just going to be just an asshole. You know, you're not going to be full of love and laughter and light and positive energy. You're just going to push people away all the time, right? And that's not what we want either. We want to be social masters as well as physical masters, right? And spiritual masters. So we want to combine all three. We want to be health, wealth, relationships, okay? And overarching spirituality, which is the container for all three of them. So this is what I started to understand. I went into, you know, the relationships angle. I tried to improve my health, and then I tried to, I believe it was relationships, wealth, and then health, and then wealth, right? I tried all three separately. And then I tried accessing my spirituality with the lens of spirituality. Now looking at all three, they've all grown exponentially. And the ability is for you to stay in that zone, stay in that pocket, be in that flow state, and actually live in this space, this liminal space, where you have this relaxed wakefulness, but also you go into these daydreams and this imagination. It's almost like walking through real life, but with imagination backing you. And that's been the greatest shift for me, specifically. Like, let's say, imagine that I have giant dragon wings, right? And now imagine walking through this space with giant dragon wings just growing and growing on your back. Already, it's just correcting my posture. You see what I'm saying? And now I imagine that I'm have dragon wings, but I'm underwater. It's gonna slow down my movements, right? Maybe the wings are gonna get wet and kind of slow down my motion a little bit as I walk through the world. You get what I'm saying? And I'm maneuvering my body language through my imagination. See what I'm saying? I imagine as I walk into a venue, I have like 4 tigers behind me, and they all walk into the venue in front of me. So I'm kind of like waiting a little bit for them to enter, and then I go in, right? These little things, these little experiments, you can find some of these examples in my book TPM that I actually wrote when I was in college, but I got published some years later, right? And I mean, from that point, what really accelerated my spirituality is COVID. Real talk, because COVID made me go completely into my internal world and be able to fully understand it. Most of my inner work, my shadow work that was still unmet, right, got met in those times. And I really started to double down on energy work and energy healing. And I started to experience the benefits of that. And I knew I had a gift, and I needed to have it summoned out into the physical world. Shout out to Samba, who's one of my first, big high-end clients. He's a bodybuilding guy, he's out there, he's trying to win, but he has this understanding of spirituality from what he knows, and through that we could actually get him to release all of these different blocks that he had, right? And then of course Samba's friend is Joey. Joey also showed up to the Bali retreat, and things start to domino effect from there. By helping somebody out, you start to help out all of their people associated with them. You see what I'm saying? And of course, I'm not allowed to speak too much about what my clients are up to, because I have had clients, who are in high levels of government. Okay, like I've had politicians, I've had Instagram influencers, I've had athletes who are my clients. I've had, like some people who've won like the Olympics and stuff like this, but I don't share that stuff, right? I keep that very low key because it's between me and my client who I'm working with. I've heard the most atrocious things, the most deviant things, the most funny things, okay, throughout my career timeline, okay? So me being a positive psychologist and a healer, I've heard so many stories of what is effective in life, stories of what is ineffective in life, stories that come to haunt people, years later. And that's why I moved slowly away more of the psychology side of things and more into coaching. Because in psychology, you just kind of dive into the past and try to go so much into the past. What I loved, though, is the somatic therapy element of Reichian therapy, bioenergetics, okay? And not a lot of people know about this or are doing this in Kolkata, right? Past line, timeline therapy or past life regression, healings of sorts. This thing hasn't really been, there's pranic healing and stuff here, I've done it, but there's not really this enriching combination of all forms and modalities of healing that makes you almost like a sharp hacksaw that can come in with your state of mind and make an impact like this, right? So you want to be that kind of catalyst. You want to walk in to an environment feeling so confident, so real, so much masculine presence and aura bubbling up, from your beingness, that you can just take up space wherever you go. You don't feel the need to shudder, be like this, or kind of hold your drink towards you. And I used to do this when I was shy, right? I used to completely beat myself up in my own mind, but then I started to speak back to that voice, that inner critic. I started to speak back to it. I was like, shut the fuck up, man. Why are you whining right now? Let's go. You have a mission. You have something to do. You have something to tend to. You have something to attend to. You need more tenderness. Okay? So I started to speak to myself differently. Like, what do you mean you're not good enough, bro? You're the only you that ever exists. You're the best you that you can be. Just keep going. Just keep moving forward. I used to give myself these like little self-talk, pep talk, motivational talk in my own mind as I'm just going out throughout the day. Like, I don't feel like doing something, or I don't feel like, especially cold shower, man. Oh man, when it gets cold here, I'm like bitching out, I'm just like, I don't want to do this, but I still do it. I still turn it on. Robotically, my hand moves towards it because it knows the power that it has. Okay? It knows the power that it has. The activities by themselves harness chi and protect chi. And the more effort you can put into your magical rituals and practice, this is something from Frank White that I understood, the more impact can actually happen on the ripple effect of the quantum, right? So let's just say you make a ritual where you collect the candles, you find the rocks, you scavenger hunt for a specific rock or a specific flower that you're guided to, and then you have to put all of these ingredients together with a feather, right? Where am I gonna find a feather now, And that puts you into this pocket of this like, almost like beast mode, but I don't want you to think of it as beast mode, because beast mode is like, oh, I have to tap into this zone. It's not a beast mode, bro. It's beast life. We just are beasts. We just know how to bring it up and call it back in, summon it back in. Okay, like Pokemon almost. So it's like, tap into your heart. The beast is there. You can call upon it. It changes your frequency. It brings out your raw, dark masculine. And then you can pull it back. Okay, you don't need to be Super Saiyan mode all the time, right? You don't need to do that. There's some times where you got to be very yin and very collected in your energy, and not, booming it out using that fire, but rather being more water. So it's a mix of fire and water, the Stoicism and Taoism that keeps moving and creating this echo chamber of positive ripples. And I started to read a lot of philosophy too, man. To get into my spirituality, the real spirituality, I started to listen to all these spiritual teachers. Like I remember Eckhart Tolle, Muji, all of these great names that just, Michael Singer, listen to Alan Watts, listening to all of these thought leaders, right? They were thought leaders and they taught mainly based on things like Buddhism and things like this. I learned a lot from my dad as well. He's a Buddhist and he meditates, and he has his own meditation center now. And I remember when he first taught me how to meditate when I went to Delhi a little while back. A little while was like maybe a year or so, right? Like maybe 2 years back or 1 year back. He actually properly taught me how to meditate. And I know he taught me sometime when I was younger, but I just never really tapped into it to the level where I had, And nowadays, now that I'm initiated in transcendental meditation, I can then do that as a practice, which goes on for like, 15, 20 minutes max. And, I can sit in silence with that mantra in my mind and just stay in that pocket, in that state. And I'm training myself to do that as well, and maintaining the habit of doing that, because I have noticed that it definitely accelerates my state of mind, or at least my emotional code, as you'd call it, right? What is that guy's name? Brian Newman or whatever. But anyway, man, my spirituality, I understood I'm not a human body, I'm a spirit, right? I am Brahman, I am the Force in Star Wars, I am the flow that is already there. I'm the prana around me and the prana in me, right? And of course I went through like numerous spiritual kind of awakenings or gnosis, where I started to get more kind of like these ego death or near death experiences that I had in my life that would kind of put me into the shamanistic state, right? The shaman is able to meet these other secret realms that you can't see, right? They are the knower. They are the ones who is consumed by the fire of inspiration. They're the ones who are there connecting with the animal in the plant world, plants being alive. You know, you remember that creepy chick named Poppy, right, back in the day? I like plants. Plants are our friends, okay? If you listen to it from that channel, some of you are like, yo, this chick is creepy though. But if you listen to, like, let's say someone you admire tell you, yo, plants are our homies and we gotta take care of them. Okay, stop messing up the fucking planet. What are you, dumb? Right? Like if I sat here and I preached that mission, some of you would be like, yo, he's on something. He's right, man. Yo, that guy, he speaks the truth. Okay, some of you will be like, but it's coming from Poppy, like, plants are our friends. Okay, this submissive girl telling you, you might be like, she's right, but also that's kind of robotic and creepy, man. It's like, but she is anti-Tao. If you notice, a lot of these celebrities, they act like robots, right? They're very controlled, right? They're very stiff in their bodies. Okay? Literally, you can tell, you can look at the dead in people's eyes, right? You can see the dead in people's eyes. Like, look at my eyes right now. Full of life, full of vivacity, full of energy to take on the day and ready to serve the planet, right? Got a day full of adding value to the planet that I'm in. And I know it's a prison planet, but guess what? I'm creating my own lifestyle. I'm creating my own flow state pleasure bubble so that I can stay there in that pocket and generate chi so strong that it not only heals the people living in this complex, in this apartment building, but also as it ripples across as I do these practices. So that's what I think, literally. That I'm meditating, it's not going to help me, it's going to help my presence with others, giving them permission to be more present throughout their days. Because I get clients coming to me, they're frantic, they're full of energy, they're talking, they want to vent, you know, it's all this unprocessed pain body, right? That are coming through. That's what you're there for. You're there to express and for me to hold space for you. And sometimes I'm going to challenge your mindset. I'm not going to sit there like just taking notes and that. I might challenge you. And that's completely valid because you need sometimes someone to have you focusing the psychology of the future into the coaching, psychology of the past, into the coaching of the future. Okay, because coaching is all about, what do I do? Where's my goal, right? And I never liked the word goal, so I changed it to objective. I changed the word to intention. As a magician, I understand that a lot better, that understanding of that. Intention. I want something, I intend on getting something, and I'm going to let go of the attachment to that thing, but I'm also going to make steps, actionable steps that I can take out into the physical world. This is the timeline right now, is the timeline for you to do more physical things with your physical body. It's no more in this astral floating around, being in imagination space anymore. The timeline is ready now for you to do things with your hands. Pick up the pen and write it down. Okay? Do things like, move your physical body, dance it out. Okay? Climb a tree. Do these physical things with your physical body, exploring the momentum and the rhythm with your animal self and your human self. Working together in one, in harmony and synchrony. You get what I'm saying? So now that you know that it's time for that, get into your body. Okay? Get into your physical body. Start moving around as much as you can, okay? This is one of my favorite movements to do, which is just basically, you just make your arms like a rag doll and you hit along your belly, all the way up, higher. You can do it higher and then you can do it lower as well, okay? So you can go much higher or you can go much lower into the lower belly as well, okay? There's so many things that you can do. Shaking. I'm fascinated by these different practices because I can do them at any time. And I don't feel that shame anymore where I'm just like, where people are watching or whatever. What is he doing? I don't know. It's kind of weird. Is he crazy? Like, is that guy okay? The fact that he's like shaking like this, I don't give a fuck. You know, it's my life. I'm gonna do whatever I want to do. And that's the mentality that's really gonna take you forward, man. I'm gonna do whatever I want. I'm here. I'm a free citizen of this planet. Okay? Yes, I'm in a jail cell just like all of these other billions of people around the world. But guess what? I'm gonna make my experience of life the greatest experience of life that I can make it. And that's what we're all about. We're about mindset first. All is mind. Let's get it. Upward spiral, gang. May you never be the same again after this video. Let's go today. You got this. May the flow be with you, champ. Let's go. Boom.